Howdy all of you delicious people, I'm here today to review So Cold, the River. So this is a movie based off of a novel, and my knee-jerk thing to go on and say is that I'm kind of curious if the book could really explain the movie better. I feel like people would have had to have gone on to read the book to then understand the movie. Uh, for this film, I would have to go on and say there's some potential scenes within this film that are interesting and are like, all right, this is like this kind of feels unique, and how it seems that Erica's character is to get the truth from people via just putting them on film. I find that interesting, but it's a movie about a documentary, and documentaries to me aren't all that exciting. And then you're doing a movie that's about a person doing a movie about a documentary. And I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be a slow as molasses freaking movie, and it is. But there's just some interesting elements that come out of this. So I would go on and possibly compare this movie to The Sixth Sense. And I think a lot of people would also compare it to The Shining, but I think it more feels like The Sixth Sense to me. So let's go on and just kind of let's grade this movie. Let's go on and kind of tee it up and say what this movie is really about. Even when I kind of did a little bit early. So, grading wise, I would say this is a bad film, but there is some potential there. Uh, if this movie was to have been free somewhere to watch, I would recommend people doing so. I think with it being a premium access thing that's $2.99 for a movie that you would probably just casually be watching, you wouldn't be glued to your screen watching every second of it because it's that slow. I can't justify a premium access fee. So, going on, there's a number of apps that are like holding this for $2.99 right now. But I would recommend a number of bootleg apps that I've used over time, so you can possibly go and see this movie for absolutely free. First off, you can go into C Movies app. That's the letter C, and you can go and find that through a Google search and search those words, C Movies app. So hopefully you'll be able to go on and download this app. And it is updated right now to go on to the Yes Movies app. Go ahead and download that app and be able to see whatever you like. There is also another app via Google search called Fox HD Movies. The logo will say so, but the title of the app will say something different. It'll say Play 1080p HD Movies. Go ahead and go through a Google search, find that, and hopefully you'll be able at the end of the day to say they could see So Cold, the River. And then last would be, of course, a app called TV Crush, 2 words, and go ahead and find that this app is to be kind of tweakingly different because the actual title of it is now HD Movies, 123 Movies. The logo will say HD Movies with a king crown off the side. Go ahead and download that app and be able to watch a number of things for absolutely free, like So Cold, the River. So, now teeing it up, what is this movie about? So, we have a woman named Erica who, after a past mistake of hers of doing of making a movie before, Erica has decided to do these smaller projects that deal with weddings or funerals, to go on and do little videos and slideshows and stuff like that for them. And so Erica is to go on and do this one video, and we have Allison, who is to be very fascinated with this girl's approach, realizing that this girl is to be gifted somehow, that she knew something that no one else really knew. So Alyssa is to want Erica to make her way to this woman's father to see if Erica can somehow be able to work her magic on this father of hers who is passing away, Mr. Bradford. So, come to find out, Erica is to have this Pluto water, which has these possibilities of healing somebody from either a hangover or possible illnesses. It has some kind of weird, goofy healing property. And so we have Erica that goes on to make her way to Mr. Bradford, and then afterwards she is to head to West Baden to go to the Springs Hotel to investigate the whole backstory of Campbell Bradford and the whole mystery behind all of that. And we also are to have a descendant of Josiah Bradford, who it seems that Erica is to quickly fall for. So eventually, by the time that we get to the end of the film, we are to naturally assume that within this water is to also have a side effect. This Pluto water bottle specifically is to have this side effect, and we have it where even Mr. Bradford was to talk to Erica and be like, oh my god, like, you broke the seal of this Pluto water. Like, oh my god, what have you done? So, yeah, so this movie kind of comes off as Sixth Sense, The Shining, a number of things. And so it's interesting, but you really gotta sit through it. There's some interesting things about it, but it's like, man, you really just gotta sit through this film. And I was like, man, like, this is a long stretch of a film, and how slow can this be? Like, I can watch a film as long as it's intriguing enough, but man, like, this film is just, it's a documentary, it's a meta thing, and it was boring for a good portion of it. Like, the movie really seems to like find something interesting to deliver me. Like, when we actually get to Mr. Bradford, and then after that, like 45 minutes in, roughly, we then get some intriguing stuff and some story, and then, like, it seems like the movie starts to like pick up. But also, I'm just like, what is up with the whole, like, Play-Doh bottle within this movie? Like, it goes on and it does some obscure things after it seems someone is to finally drink it. It seems to somehow or another start to fill up with blood, and like, it just kind of is to just be like frozen at one point of this film, where it starts to like have this kind of weird kind of freezing effect on it. It's very odd. But anyways, I think it's about that time to just go on into spoilers, because there isn't going to be much for me to say after we go out of our way if I don't get to that. And plus, I've only been talking for 10 minutes about this movie, so it's about that time to just go into spoilers, because it's about that time again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time is about that time again to spoil this movie. So, in the very beginning of the film, we have a woman talking on the phone, mentioning that whoever she's talking to, she's obviously having an affair with this person, because she is talking to this man and saying like, well, hey, like, what if he was in the car? Like, yeah, I have high standards. And so all of a sudden, with this woman in this car who is to have this Pluto water uh, bottle that is to be sealed, and all of a sudden, while this woman is within this car, she gets into a car accident and dies. So, transition us to now have this woman go on and have this funeral. I guess she was cremated. Because all you see is this big, like, urn, and we see, like, a bunch of photos that, of course, are to be put together for this whole video. So, Erica is to walk out of this funeral home, and a girl named Alyssa is chasing after her. So, Erica is to drive off, and so Alyssa is to like hunt this girl down, Google search her, and find out about her. Come to find out, Erica is to have a past of doing documentaries, doing so well so that she almost had gotten an Oscar at one point for this one documentary that she went on and did about this man who was in prison that Erica was to try and help him get out of prison by telling his story. Come to find out, after this man was, of course, to get released, something horrible happened after that. I think his name is Lonnie. So, Lonnie, of course, was to go on and get released, and once he was to go home with his family, he killed all of them and was to be sent right back to prison. And so really we just have Erica, who is to be dealing with that burden on her conscience. And so eventually Erica has mentioned that to Kellen Cage, who is a real big fan of Erica's, and Erica actually tells her the truth about that whole documentary. But we'll get to that. So, Alyssa is to have Google search this woman, and is to find out that she has a really impressive resume. And so Alyssa is asking Erica, it's like, well, hey, like, it's obvious that you knew that I think her sister was to have an affair. Only Alyssa knew about it, and how did Erica know, is what Alyssa wanted to find out. And Erica is like, well, you gave me the photos, like, but I could have easily figured out the story throughout the photos. Realizing easily that this girl was having this affair, and Erica is to go on and have this kind of special ability, and Alyssa's like, well, yeah, you have some gift. And Erica's like, well, yeah, like, that was nice to say when I was like 20 years old, but like now, like, like, I don't want to use that kind of word. So Alyssa's telling Erica, it's like, okay, so it seems that you are to somehow, through a camera lens or through these photos, it seems like you have some sense of sort. So I'm going to go on and give you 2 months of pay for you to go on and do this project for me, going on to my father's hospital and kind of seeing if you can work your magic and get anything out of him. So Erica's like, okay, like that seems like an offer that Erica can't refuse. So Erica goes on to this hospital and is to have this Pluto water with her. So Erica is to take this bottled water and have it in front of her in the car, but she realizes, well, maybe I could break this, so I'm going to put it in the back seat. Because Alyssa is to give Erica this bottled water because it was the only thing that survived in that car crash. And so Erica's to put in the back seat, so hoping that it won't break, and also probably hoping that she doesn't have a car crash next. But Erica, as soon as she looks back to the windshield, is to have this bird smack onto her windshield and scares her a bit. So Erica goes on to Mr. Bradley, who it seems is really on his like last legs, just kind of. It seems that he's not really talking, or it seems that he may be in some kind of coma, it seems. So Erica is going on, and so Erica's talking to Mr. Bradley, just saying like, "Oh, well, come on, Mr. Bradley, tell me your confession. Like, Alyssa, she's a witch, right? Tell me anything, Mr. Bradley. Go on and tell me whatever you like." So we have Erica that has this camera on Mr. Bradley, and she's getting nothing. And so Erica's like, "Well, I tried." All of a sudden, Mr. Bradley talks. And Erica's like, "Oh my god, this is seriously happening." So Erica is to look at Mr. Bradley away from the camera, and he says nothing. Erica looks back into the camera, and again, Mr. Bradley is talking. And so Erica's like, okay, like, this is some kind of work or some kind of, this is some kind of show, but I'll go with it. So Erica starts talking to Mr. Bradley about the past and about Campbell Bradley and West Baden in the Spring Hotel and that whole story about that. And so Erica is to ask Mr. Bradley about this Pluto water, and Bradley's to be in fear because he's like, "Oh my god, like, you unsealed it." Like, she still has this kind of like this kind of cork on there, but Bradley's like, or am I saying that right? Bradford is going on in fear because she had broken the seal. Oh no, the seal is broken. Oh no, it's going down. So Erica, that's all that she can get from Bradford, Mr. Bradford. And so, considering that's all she could really get out of him, she then goes off to the Spring Hotel and is to investigate further, maybe hoping that she could get some people that are to know the lore about this hotel. And so we immediately have Erica that goes in this hotel, and she's met by some I don't know the quite hotel term for this guy, but it seems that he's a guy who is to kind of be the concierge or something like that. The kind of guy who is to kind of go around and asks people about the hotel and stuff like that. He's kind of like the bus boy or something like that of this hotel. That bus boy is not probably the right word. he would be normally like a guy behind the counter. So Dylan is to go on and meet with Erica and ask if she's here for business or rebirth, because supposedly they're in this hotel is soon to have this event called the Rebirth that is happening soon, and we have Dylan that's curious if Erica wants to get involved, and Erica's like, I don't think so. And Dylan's like, well, hey, like we'll get you eventually. So Dylan is to go from person to person and ask if they're here for business or rebirth, because this thing has happened every year, and I guess this is where it's known for. Erica, when she goes into the hotel, was in awe about the outside, and then we have Josiah, who is to be this kind of janitor slash plumber slash mechanic guy for this hotel, that is to go on and tell Erica, it's like, well, hey, like if you like the outside, just wait till you get inside. So Erica goes in and is looking at the sights, and she's like, oh my god, this place is massive and it's amazing. So Erica is to, of course, get this room and have this Pluto water. And she, of course, is very tempted to drink this, as well as also Dylan at some point in time is to offer that this girl can go into one of these tubs next to the pool to then get the natural springs water that is to have like sulfur and stuff in it. And some people are to say that they had changed the water to go on and mess with it, not give people the healing properties, but like the water that was in the tub is to be like specifically to be from like the real like original source of it all. So Erica goes on and is looking at this Pluto water, and she of course is very tempted to drink this. And if at first she goes on and just kind of puts the bottle by the table and walks away, she opens the door back up and then drinks the water, because she doesn't believe in this lore, she doesn't believe in this history. But all of a sudden, when Erica starts drinking this for the first time, we have Lucas Granger, who is telling Erica, what have you done? As he's going on and playing this violin from the past. So it seems that more and more, when Erica is to drink this Pluto water or be in this water, it seems that she is continuing to see things from the past and see these spirits go on and be able to enhance her ability to go on and see things. So Erica goes on to eventually meet up with a girl named Anne McKinney. And so Erica is just kind of drinking and mentions that she doesn't want to be very social against Anne. And Anne is just going to keep talking anyways. Just blah, 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 blah. And Anne is like, and so Erica is like, seriously? Like, can't you tell that I want nothing to do with you? So Erica is talking to Anne, and so Anne is to go on and mention that she likes to go to this rebirth thing every year, and that if Erica is to seem to be doing a documentary about this hotel, she knows about the whole history of it. Because when Erica starts to mention that she's doing a movie about this whole thing, Anne starts rattling off that this hotel was built in 1902 and this and that, and Erica's like, I nah, like I don't need to know all of that. So Anne is going on and telling Erica, it's like, well, hey, if you need a historian, you're looking for me because I can tell you everything. So we have Erica that starts asking Anne about Campbell Bradford, and Anne is like, ooh, and she starts to slowly walk away. She's like, well, I hope everything goes well for you on your movie, and she starts walking away. But eventually, when Erica pokes and prods at Anne more, finally Anne goes on and tells a story. But Erica is kind of waiting for her intern, which ends up being Kellen Cage. So, come to find out, this girl is to go on and be in one of the, like, I'm not sure if it's Kellen Cage's character, because I was thinking, like, why does she look so familiar? And then I'm like, oh my god, she was in like the one of the Conjuring or one of the Annabelle movies. I'm not quite sure whichever one where like where uh, where this actress was going on and looking at the TV, and I think she ends up getting put into the TV. I think what happens to her at one of the end of one of those movies. It's been a while, but like at least I remembered her from one of those kind of Conjuring Annabelle movies. Maybe the Creation one, whichever one was where was to probably be either way. I think it's one of the Annabelle ones. Moving on. It's probably not Creation, but it's probably the one before that. Whatever ties into the Conjuring movies. Moving on. Uh, my bad. So, Erica is talking to Kellen, and it seems that Kellen was to lie that she knew Erica good and well, and knew about like this girl's backstory and stuff like that. And so Kellen is to mention how that documentary that she did about that prison guy was to go on and almost have won her an Oscar. And Erica's like, yeah, but like, you don't know the whole story about it. So later on in the movie, Erica does explain what happened and is to realize that also Erica was to even realize that the guy that she was to help be set free, she knew he was guilty. She could tell. But she wanted to go on and like she wanted to do this documentary just so well and try to like help this bump her career or save her career, that she probably felt like she sold her soul to the devil in doing so. That maybe she had come to be a good person that turned evil. So, and that maybe a number of people who are possibly attracted to this Pluto water may be evil people or are to possibly change people from good to being bad. That could be an interesting way to spin this movie. So, but Erica's talking to Kellen, and they're talking about the past and or Erica's past. So after that, we go on to have both Erica and Kellen, who are to want to just kind of get out of this hotel. because Erica is to go on and start seeing things, and she just wants to kind of get some fresh air, and the only real fresh air that she is to go on and find is a casino. We also had one point where Erica, by herself, was to go to this railroad, these tracks, and these railroad tracks. So Erica is to put this camera in front of this railroad tracks, and all of a sudden she starts hearing this train coming. She's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Erica is to kind of put her foot on the rail, and it doesn't feel like anything's really coming, but she hears this train. All of a sudden, Erica is to move her equipment, and there is a train that ends up coming by, and I'm like, this feels like Ghostbusters 2, when Egon, Winston, and Ray all are underneath that sewer, and all of a sudden the train, the ghost train, just starts barreling through Winston, and they're like, "Oh, that must be the train that killed hundreds of people. Like, did you were you able to like catch the number on the train?" And Winston's like, "I'm sorry." Like, sorry, I missed it. So, and we kind of have that scene somewhat here. So Erica is watching this train roll, and we have Campbell Bradley that is poking his head out of one of the parts of this train. And so Erica is slowly starting to realize that she can see some of the past. So, but Erica and Kellen go to this casino, and when they go on further into this casino, we have Erica bumping into Josiah. And immediately they start to split up between Erica and Kellen, so Erica could spend some time with Josiah. So Erica and Josiah are going on and playing like blackjack or 21 or whatever. So Erica goes on and starts talking to Josiah, and they're to kind of just talk about things, which leads to them going to her place. They start making out, they start kissing, and so all of a sudden, while Erica is going into the other room, we have Josiah, who all of a sudden takes a swig of the Pluto water, and he ends up mentioning that it's very cold, and I think he ends up saying that it tastes like crap, so to speak. So Erica is afraid simply because of Josiah going on and drinking this. Because if she can go on and see like a thing of the past, like what is it going to go on and change within Josiah? So Erica is to go on and do her interview with Anne, going on and having Anne finally, instead of talking about anything else, that Anne just wants to talk about the history of this town, instead she's talking about Campbell Bradley. And so come to find out, Campbell Bradley wanted to buy out the town, and there was only one person that kind of stood in his way, and it was to be the guy who owned the Spring Hotel, the Springs Hotel, and that is actually Rory Granger. And so Campbell wanted this hotel so badly that he was willing to kill the hotel owner and take his boy. And eventually what had happened within that story is that the boy had gone missing, and the only thing that they found was the violin. We also had Campbell, who was to take out a number of men and kill them along the way when Campbell was to be found out. Going on and having him kill a sheriff and kind of just nailing him to this wall, which at some point Erica is to see within this hallway at some point when Campbell is to have this, or the sheriff is to have this picture of Campbell asking if Erica has seen this man, and then Erica sees this guy kind of railroad spiked to the wall. So we also find out that Anne is to mention that, or someone is to go on and mention that an FBI agent was also after Campbell, and Campbell went on and killed him off also. And I think at some point they ended up finding his body somewhere. So we go into this story, and like I was like, man, this is actually getting really fascinating, where Anne is actually telling us this whole tale. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm starting to understand like what that whole bridge scene was about, where this boy just kept playing this violin, and Campbell was with this guy who was all kind of gagged and tied up. I'm like, what does this scene mean? So after Erica is to talk to Anne about this story, and it feels like everybody in this town is very uncomfortable talking about it, as if they're saying this guy's name, and it's like the equivalent of Harry Potter's Voldemort, where it's like, oh no, you can't say that name, people get uneasy. So after Erica is to get this story, we have Erica that now wants to talk to Josiah, and considering he is also a Bradford, Erica wants Josiah, considering he's the last of this family, to also say his piece about this thing. So Josiah's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go on and say anything. And Erica's like, well, why? Because Josiah's like, because I want him dead. Like, I think this guy has brought like a Campbell curse on my family. And Erica's like, well, like, isn't it better if you call it like the Bradley problem instead of the Campbell curse? And so like Josiah's like, well, that may sound better, considering that guy is to be like their great grandfather. But anyways, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, so let's back up a little bit. So Erica wants Josiah to basically tell this guy to F off. And so they give him a camera to be able to do so. And so Josiah goes on into this rant about how it feels like his family had been cursed. That his mother had gone on and died on a rainy day, and that a number of his family members had all died from walking in front of a train, or one of his family members, I think his uncle, had gotten very drunk and died while choking on his vomit, because that's a legitimate thing. And like, it just doesn't happen to celebrities. So Bradley is going on and rattling off all these family members that were to die from seemingly unnatural causes. And so Bradley's to say that this guy, Campbell, was to possibly be the tie of all that. And so, like, this guy had cursed their whole family. And Josiah was to go on and try to get a number of odd jobs at some point, and at one job, he was to deal with like explosives. And so Josiah had gone on to mention that he had gotten fired from that job because he would go on and try to take certain equipment home with him. But Josiah went on and did that specifically so that way he could go on and trigger the bombs to be able to go off like right off of his phone. And so Josiah's like, well, hey, like, these people are kind of living in the past, and like I'm going on and doing something much more cutting edge by having a whole building just go down by the click of my phone. And Josiah is mentioning about him basically like being a god that way, that he has that knowledge that no one else has. So the more and more that both Kellen and Erica are hearing this conversation, the more uneasy they're getting. But so Josiah is to just kind of finish up this conversation and then leave. So we have Erica that's telling Kellen to take that video and put it on her laptop. She's telling Kellen that. So, oops. Jeez, I keep kicking this. My apologies. So, we then have Kellen, who is to make Erica aware of something on her laptop. And so, Kellen is to show Erica this, and it seems that Erica was to be having dialogue with no one. When Erica was supposed to be talking to Mr. Bradley and giving him that Pluto bottle, and the like whole dialogue that she had with him before when he was talking, he wasn't actually talking to her, but Erica just was hearing this voice from nowhere. So Kellen is asking Erica, it's like, well, like, you know what? I don't want to go on and say that you're crazy or anything, but... And Erica's like, no, like, it's the water. Like, it's making me see things. It's making me see things from the past. And so Kellen is just like, okay. So Erica is to start to realize that she can, considering that the bottle is empty, she can go into that tub next to the pool and still be able to go on and dunk herself into this tub and get the same effect as she would from drinking that bottle, that Pluto bottle. So Erica goes into this tub, dunks herself into it, and all of a sudden she then is to see Campbell, and Campbell is kind of pulling her out of the tub, or scaring her so much so that Erica is to try to pull away, run off to be just walking around the hotel, and then all of a sudden, when Kellen is to say, Erica, what's going on? Erica collapses. So Erica at this point is fairly unhinged. But not only that, we start to have this rebirth ceremony going on, and they are talking about rising from the ashes within the ceremony, like as if they're the phoenix, because of course, I guess that's the only real animal that is to go on and rebirth themselves. So they're going to be just calling it like rise from the ashes, or come from the ashes, and be all phoenixes, I guess, because they listened to a Fall Out Boy song X number of years ago. So we all of a sudden have Anne that is within this ceremony, and she then goes on to make her way into the back room of this hotel, this kind of maintenance room, like maybe like the boiler room or something like that, where Josiah, after drinking this water once before, was to also be in this back room, and all the lights went out, and Josiah was walking to figure out where he can go to turn some lights on, and Josiah all of a sudden sees Campbell and kind of freaks out. And then Josiah is to also go on into the train and see Campbell again, and is to mention about like, well, hey, you may have my name and you may have my blood, but like, and this and that. So Josiah is so Anne goes back into the back room, and she of course is to be killed. She is to be murdered. She is to be with an item killed, because she is to find something out. So we all of a sudden have Kellen, who is to also go into this back room, making her way to find out that Josiah is to go on and be like covered in blood, and is to have these explosives, these dynamite. And so Josiah is telling Kellen, it's like, well, hey, you should probably leave right now. There's a good chance that you'll like avoid the blast. And Kellen is talking to Josiah, and so we have Kellen, who is to try to go on and step in and try to do the right thing here. And so she tries to go on and save this place from exploding, and Erica comes in here also to eventually come to kind of help things out. So eventually what happens is Josiah is to get jabbed in the head and killed, and then Kellen and Erica are walking off after this moment has happened, and they're walking by the pool, and all of a sudden we find Erica, who has this cell phone of Josiah's, and Kellen is going on and telling Erica, it's like, well, hey, like, could you hand me Josiah's cell phone? And Erica's like, well, why? And Kellen's like, can I just have can I have it? And so Erica is to seem to be also tempted to detonate this building, as well as Josiah was. And so now Killian, I've probably been saying it let's go with Cage so I can just be safe. Cage goes on and is to cut the throat of Erica, and then is to take the cell phone, and the building does not blow up. So come to find out at the very end of this movie, we find out that Campbell is to mention about, like, you don't have my name, you don't have my blood, to the little kid of Lucas Granger. And so what happens is Lucas, the little kid with the violin, is to be in the water with Campbell, and he ends up killing him, and then taking this bottle and filling it up, and is to kind of seal it with not only the blood of this guy, but also the water, saying that there probably could be something wrong with this water that is eventually making all these people at some point killers, is what I think. But with that said, in a very roundabout way, I went on and tried to kind of mention everything that happens here. There's little scenes here and there that I kind of skipped around about, or I just kind of just plopped them in here. But with that said, there is something interesting about this movie, but you just gotta like freaking just really just hold on to your seat and just wait for that to happen. Um, but yeah, so with that said, I'm just gonna go on and get out of here. Thank you for going on and watching this. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.